So today, we're going to talk about equity in the classroom. I'm Christoph from Muehlinghaus, and I'm doing this presentation together with Gerorget Oraha, and she's on Zoom right now. She's doing the practical part of my class at our class at Merritt, called Community College. So we have a hybrid class way of doing it, and then here at Merritt we've been doing it online. The class that I teach is an anatomy class. And now we're going partially back into the classroom for some of the things that are good for tactile, like dissections and things like that. I'm a chiropractor also, and I call myself an anatomy learning coach, not a teacher. I've been doing that since '05. And if you see my rings here, it's because I have a new puppy who's 5 and keeps me up all night. I'm a little bit tired of that. But I've been thinking about teaching methods for a long time myself, because many students are challenged by the traditional school system, and so am I. And I have problems with severe test anxiety. Still have it. I took an anatomy class, which I teach in a couple semesters ago, and they used honor lock, and I practically peed in my pants. I'm like, and I just teach the damn thing. What about the other students? So I asked, is the teacher asking about the other students? So they just are focused on what they want, or need, or think. And so I'm glad some of those things, I think, are not really utilized too much. And sometimes we do need, but it sort of asks a few questions in my head. How do we make school accessible for people when we do things like that? I also have ADD, so guess what? I can't sit still. I can't really read a book. I gotta walk, I gotta create a class out of material or something that is doing things. Early on in my education, I was passed along for higher education because I wasn't that smart. Locally, I got into apprenticeship. In Switzerland, we do apprenticeships. I'm from Switzerland, which is actually great, and talk about accessibility and equity. We actually practically do something with what we learn in theory in an apprenticeship. We hopefully bring that back more and more here as well. And then I also was fortunate that I found my own way, and I have parents that are supportive and have enough resources to get me through chiropractic school. And guess what? The not so smart one, I was able to help people with chronic pain. I work with medical people, and I even work with radio people, and with Chinese people, players at times. And so they say I'm doing a good job, but originally I was passed along. So the question raises in my head is like, what about the others? How much talent are we actually losing by not making a class accessible for people, by doing the good old, you hear sometimes from the Ivy League schools, it's like early STEM classes, look to your right, look to your left, one of you is not here next time. That kind of stuff, it's like, where the hell did that come from? Learning, what is learning about? Right? When we're kids, we learn. We need curiosity to learn. And how can we make the school better? How can we do that and help with that we don't lose talented people, that we can teach as many as we can as possible. And one of my TED Talk mentors is Ken Robinson. So he says creativity now is as important in education as literacy, and we should treat it with the same status. And so that's, to me, a very important statement. Also, part of education is learning, and what drives learning is curiosity and collaboration. How can we do that? How can we not, when they do surveys, the 4-year-olds are really geniuses in creativity. After high school, they all need to go to special ed class for creativity. And so what are we doing with that? And I think equity comes into that. How can we make the class more creative, tap into students' creativity? I think making it more equitable, make it more interesting so the students want to learn. Along the way, I learned a few things. I learned that using pictures instead of words helps. I have a child that has auditory learning processing problem, and so they can't really make pictures and images with words that they hear. And one time I was walking around Merritt, and I was teaching them or helping them with anatomy, and they said, "Oh, I'm so stupid, I don't understand a word." And it made me think. I'm like, well, who is the stupid one? And I realized very fast it's actually the textbook. It's not the student. Because when I read an anatomy textbook, it's like, it's not an English class. It's like, why is it so complicated? And so I feel that, you know, that we kind of lose a lot of folk. And think of ESL, you know, helped a lot. Then I started making videos because the students had these smartphones and they wouldn't pay attention anymore. I'm like, heck, how am I going to make them pay attention? So we started making videos. And then it's like another thing that I did is start asking students, because I'm not a traditional teacher, I'm a chiropractor. And I asked, so how am I making it better for you? How can I make it better for you? And say, make it real-life based. What does it mean to you? Why should I care? And so then the relevance came in, and so I started creating a health kit, because anatomy is, you know, is a picture book. It's about my body. If they learn chemistry, I can go to Safeway and look at food labels and learn about it. How does that apply to them? And I teach them about the leg muscles. I have them do squats. Ask which ones hurt and burn afterwards. So they learn about anti-gravity muscle, not just the name. They realize, oh my God, if I can't stand anymore, I die. Which just happens a lot with people, I know. And so I started thinking, okay, how can we make that way? And then through that process, I did it myself, but then Peralta also came up with an equity rubric. And so I took that class, and it's really a great rubric. And we're going to go through some of that, do some highlights. But first, I want to have Gerorget, who's Oraha, talk a little bit about what we did at Merritt by trying to quantify what we're doing a little bit better. And so here she is. Let me share the screen, and then she'll talk for a moment.
All right, can you see me?
Yes.
All right, let me share my screen. And then I will put this on like a full screen. All right. Okay, can we?
We're good.
Oh, we're good?
Yep.
Awesome. All right. So, hi everybody, my name is Gerorget Oraha, and I want to first thank Dr. M for including me into this talk. And what I'm going to do for the portion of my portion of this is that, yes, we're talking about equity in the online classroom, but we brainstormed together about, you know, like we really wanted to have some data to back up what we're doing and to see like how we can assess what we're doing is making a difference. So I had a survey designed called The Impact of Caring Relationships on Student Motivation at the Junior College Level, because those things really go hand in hand, showing that you care about your students, and that aligns a lot with equitable practices. So just a little bit, let me see, we'll go to the next slide. A little bit about myself. I went to CSU Stanislaus for my bachelor's and then pursued a master's in marine biology at CSU Fullerton. And I've always really loved teaching. It's always been at the forefront of like what I wanted to do for my career from when I started graduate school. And I taught as a TA, and now I'm a part-time lecturer at CSU Stanislaus and Merritt College. And I work alongside Christoph for a hybrid course for Bio 16, which is our anatomy class. So my teaching interests really range anywhere from like marine biology to general to anatomy. And I have a deep interest in bioeducation research. However, this was kind of put on the back burner because I didn't really have like a specific question to ask. And working with Dr. M, it kind of reignited that interest again, because we both have very similar teaching philosophies, and we want to put equity at the forefront of how we design our classrooms. And they always come back to this talk about how we care about our students, and we want to show our students that we care. So it brought up this question of like, okay, how do we assess this? How can we show that this is something that is working for the students, especially when you have online components in your class? So just to jump right in, I had a survey designed and sent out to students at both Merritt College, where these students, they were enrolled in our hybrid course, which was General Human Anatomy. So the lecture was taught by Dr. M, and the lab was taught by me in person. And then this survey was also sent out to students at Merritt College, which is Dr. M's fully online course. So right away we have this barrier that teachers feel they have when they have an online course is, am I reaching my students? Do they know that I care about them? is my class an equitable class? Is it accessible to my students? Are they feeling like they have all the resources they need, and do they feel comfortable talking to me, and are they motivated to learn? So these are the questions that I had asked in the survey. So again, this is kind of more emphasized in caring relationships. So I put, does expressing care impact student motivation, and which of these actions matter the most to students? So the 4 actions, I had 4 different kind of categories: mental health, identity, sense of belonging in the STEM community, and empathy, and these all kind of tie with like equitable practices. Then some follow-up questions, just out of curiosity, was what age did teachers care for the most? And do caring relationships matter to students overall? We also had opportunity for testimonials at the end that were optional, and some demographics to kind of help us gauge what direction we could potentially go from this preliminary survey. And professors, we always stress about, pushing equity. So this is a way to kind of also get from the students' perspective as well as hear from them and inform our own teaching, which was something that was really important for me and as well as Dr. M. So we have these 4 caring actions: mental health, identity, sense of belonging, and empathy. How can we show we care about our students and address these different topics when we're teaching an online class? How do we do that? So just to give some examples of online modules that I like to implement in my classes that address these 4 different areas, I have a name origin activity, and all of these modules can be designed as, just a text entry kind of box or a discussion board. And it really kind of breaks the ice and break down that barrier that we have with online learning. So I basically ask students to write their name or preferred name along with their pronouns, pronunciation, whatever they want me to include and what they would like to be called. And I have them share the story of how they were named. And even if they don't know the story, maybe they have a guess and they guess what that is. And it kind of is a great way to also, to learn student names and remember them, and then just kind of start building that community right away. And then with all these activities, I always tell instructors it's important to share your own stories, because then it kind of builds that connection again, where students are like, oh, it's not just, it's not me versus you, it's us learning together. Like Dr. M said, like we are the coaches. We are not meant to just not meant to tell them what to do, we're here to learn together. So it's important to kind of break down and show the human aspects of ourselves. So this one kind of addresses identity. Mental health check-ins are great. I like this as both an online or an in-person writing exercise. What's great about the online version of this, when students really sit down and answer this question on their own and they're in their room, they really kind of take the time and vent to you. You'd be surprised at what you kind of receive. And this module is just, you ask students, how are you doing at this point of the semester? It can be about how they feel about the class about the class, or how they personally are doing. And sometimes all we need is someone to just ask us how we're doing, and that makes all the difference. You can kind of switch up the question and ask them, what does prioritizing their mental health look like in this chapter of their life? And then you can ask this question at the beginning, in the middle, or at the end of the semester, or all 3. It's nice to kind of always do a mental health check-in. For sense of belonging, a really fun one I like to do is just when you were 10. So you ask students, when you're about 10 years old, what did you want to grow up to be, and what do you want to be now? You can share your own personal experience as an instructor, and if you've always wanted to be a professor, or if you've changed your mind. And then you emphasize that changing directions or having the same path in whole life is okay. Regardless, it's your path to make, and you belong in the field that you're in, to really provide them that sense of belonging. Empathy is always a tough one, because this is kind of like you want to have built some rapport with your student. So what I like to do for this activity, I have students write a stress list. So any types of stresses that are going on in their life right now, it can be life, work, family, health related. And then I have students highlight or bold or underline the ones that they can control. and follow up with how they feel about these stresses and what would be the next step to work towards eliminating that stress. Of course, easier said than done, but when you as an instructor share your own personal experience, it helps to know that peers and teachers all go through these same type of motions. And this is the opportunity to remind your students that sometimes all we need is someone to listen and that you're available to them and that you can also direct them to someone that can help them further if needed. So these are some of the examples that I use for the class that the survey was sent out to. So I did implement all these activities for the hybrid course. Now I want to jump into some of the results for the survey. So the questions for the caring actions were all phrased in a similar way. Keep in mind, very preliminary, not heavy statistics were done yet, so this is just kind of to give us a sense of direction of where to go from here and kind of see where we're at. So for the first caring action, all the questions were phrased in a way where it was, my instructors express they care about blank, and this increases my motivation to succeed. So the red is the my instructors express they care about my mental health, and then the purple is this increases my motivation to succeed. We had 42 participants, which is a good start. And you can see we have similar patterns across the board where it's a strongly agree. So at the very top, the graph says strongly agree, and at the very bottom, it's strongly disagree. So we can see that most students strongly agree that, yes, my instructors show that they care, and this increases my motivation. Similarly, we get that with identity. And you can see the pattern kind of continues where a majority of the students feel the same for all these caring actions. So sense of belonging in the STEM community. Yes, my instructors care that I feel a sense of belonging, and this increases my motivation to succeed. And then with empathy as well. Majority of the students strongly agree, and yes, they agree that this pushes them to succeed. And this is great to see, especially when a lot of the survey was also sent out to the students that were fully online. So they're still feeling this sense of, yes, I matter, which is so great to see. Some follow-up questions was we just wanted to know which one of these actions do students care about the most, and empathy came up at number 1, and then mental health, and then identity, and then sense of belonging. So it was interesting to kind of see this ranking if we wanted to kind of focus on one of these specific actions in the future. And then the testimonials were awesome because they highlighted a little bit of what we do. So I just have 2 examples I wanted to share because I thought they were really cool. So the first testimonial was, please explain how caring relationships with your current instructors impacted your motivation specifically in this classroom. This one says, first of all, this was my second time repeating anatomy because my previous professor felt detached and I could not speak to them. However, my current professor always was available, and if for any reason I was not able to make it to class, they were understanding. Also doing the reflections at the beginning of class, so like those online module examples that I mentioned, helped me connect with my classmates and reflect on the day. I actually enjoyed going to class and didn't want to go. They were always engaging and had interactive activities. And then a testimonial to see if this has a lasting impact. We had asked, does this caring relationship impact your motivation to succeed in your future endeavors? And this response was great because it highlights Dr. M specifically, so I wanted to include it. And it says, a caring instructor can make a strong impact on the student that lasts beyond the course school. My previous experience of teachers from elementary to college has been a 0. And because of that past experience, I was reluctant to go back to school for a long time, with a general sense of anxiety about schools and teachers. With this current experience / course, being taught by a fantastic teacher, Dr. M has enabled me to feel positive about learning and studying. I finished this course feeling motivated and excited to continue my studies to reach my goal of nursing school. Thank you, Dr. M. So these were all some great results we got, and hopefully we can move forward with more specific questions. So I just had some acknowledgements that I just wanted to say thanks to Dr. M for including me into this and reigniting my interest in bioed research. And I appreciate all the participants for helping me and Dr. M inform my own teaching, and credits to mentors and colleagues for some of these activities that I include. And I'm always happy to exchange and share ideas with professors on creating a welcoming class environment. And I have my email up there. It's just my first last name at mccb.edu. And now I'll give it back to Dr. N to kind of build more on what he does for building an equitable classroom. So thank you, and that's all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Very much. Let me share here again. So what I want to do now is just briefly go through the Peralta rubric, equity rubric that they created, and they did an excellent course in the fall. Thank you to Kevin Kelly, Muehlinghaus, and Amy Donnelly, who really did a wonderful job and taught us a lot. The equity rubric provides guidelines for the course to be accessible, as diverse as a student body or population as possible, and it was created to institutionalize diverse practices that support inclusion and equity in an online environment. And those areas addressed are make sure people have tech stuff, they can have computers, they have internet, they have all of that stuff, they have support, they have food, they can eat. Without food, you can't study. And people are hungry these days sometimes. Then pedagogy. What do we do? How do we teach? The equity rubric has 8 elements, and I will go through some examples, and then I also put some activities in Commons, Canvas Commons, if you want to use some or look at some, just so, because it takes a long time to make these things. That's what I realized. The first equity one is technology. We've got to make sure that the students have, that we bridge the digital divide, that the students have laptops if they don't have them themselves, that the students have internet. And mine, oh look at that, there are all the things on it, I just screenshotted it. I sent out a welcome letter, and we have links directly to the laptop lending program, to low-cost internet providers. They click on it, they can write to it. So that's one way we're trying to do that. I also put that in the syllabus. So we do a welcome letter about a week before class. I send that out, and then, so actually the syllabus, this time I PDF'd it, I just texted it to everybody. So they have it early on. And then the next rubric is student resources. What services do we have that students can succeed, that students can do well? Again, welcoming letter syllabus, we have links to student services, but also Alameda here has services as well. We link it to that website. And then, of course, for our disability also, we have the student accessibility services through there. And so that's easily done to make your classroom equitable, to make these direct links to those services. Then the third one, that's a big one, is universal design for learning. How do we present the material? How do we tap into people's different intelligences, not just one intelligence? So one thing that I do, I just screenshotted a few of my Canvas pages. I make video, obviously video lectures is one way to present material. They got to be captioned. If you need help with captioning, I can help you with that. I'm sure there's multiple ways of doing that. I also provide, and some people do audio. They actually read the page and put an audio on it because some people like to just listen to it. I don't do that on mine yet. But we do have the reader if you want. Then I also provide the main points in bullet formats. I try to make it presented so it's like they have tabs, so they can click on it, so it's not too overwhelming of material. It's a long list of a book. It's basically a book, right? Kind of thing. I also transcribe my lecture, so they actually can have a PDF of the whole text that's in the lecture. That takes, I'm trying to figure out a little better way than TXTing it and then have to go through the whole thing, but I'm working on that. So we want to tap into different intelligences of the student, not just one way. The same is true for when we have students turn in work. How do I turn in work? Well, we can write something. That's traditional. But what about the people, you ask me to write 150 words and go, oh my God, and I'm one of them. Like, how am I going to come up with that in English, my third language? And something like that. It's not going to work. For them as well. And so what I do and what many do at this point, we can make a video or make an audio recording. Do that way. If you have questions, they can answer those questions in a video or an audio, that's fine. I can listen to it. Then I don't have to read the whole time. I also, anatomy is very, memorization stuff, or at least some of that is memorization. So I go over a lot with flashcards. So if they make flashcards of the material that we're learning, they just take a picture of it and send me that. Because then they're already having one step past. Even drawing. I have them build a cell model with household stuff that they find, batteries and whatever in the kitchen and so forth. So I had one person make a CAD online model that I can rotate and turn. I mean, it's like I would never know how to do that, but that's clicking for them. So it's perfect. So we want to give the students the opportunity to be creative and tap into their intelligences. Again, discussion forums are great for that, but also I do coloring labeling exercises, so in there they can even annotate it on the computer if they want, or on the iPad. They don't even have to have paper with them at this point. That Canvas is really great that way. So that's the universal design of learning. So that's kind of a big one. But it's not that hard to implement, just because once you do it once, you just copy-paste all the instructions again and again. Then the next one is diversity and inclusion. We want to communicate and have activities that show that all types of background, diverse identities, and cultures are welcome and valued. Because guess what? We can learn from each other. We only feel like we're going to put each other down if we're having insecurity or so, but if we are open as the teachers and we're welcome to students who are like, hey, they don't even feel like they can speak up. They are just squashed with that. And most of them are not like that at all. And so I have a diversity, equity, inclusion statement in the syllabus. I put my syllabus up on Canvas Commons. Of course, it's for anatomy, but a lot of it is all the same. That's important there. I also have an activity that's an update profile activity. So I want them to update their profile. It's an online class, so people can sort of learn from each other a little bit of that. And I have them make a video. That way they learn how to make a video. That one I make them have a video. Where they talk about a bias that they have been exposed to. So I want to break down some of those barriers and have them think about that a little bit. Stereotype stuff. Images representation. I have a whole page that is celebrate diversity. A picture with many different types of students. And then I have a couple of infographics that I found that I find good. Infographics are a little hard to put on Canvas because you've got to describe them. You can't in alt text, alternative text. But I just had a little blurb, a little paragraph describing it, so it really worked out fine. I put that up on Commons as well, so if anybody wants it or get some information from. So then they have that page, and then after that page I have my own video of what stereotypes I was exposed to that kind of had problems with and so forth, and then they do the same thing. So we learn from each other again. Then we have human biases, and that's a little bit in the same direction there. Human biases are identified in the course content and activities. That's what we want to do. We want to identify and talk about them, not have them be silenced. We don't have to make a big deal out of it, but we want to make sure everybody feels welcome. So one of the things that I do, and I altered that, we had that in the online equity rubric class, and so Dr. Alta Erden Bantar, I hope I don't bastardize that name. But they always do mine, so it's okay. He had a superb idea, and he did it with entrepreneurs. I think he teaches a business class, and I just did it with scientists. Like spotlight a scientist that is traditionally not a person that is in that field. And usually white guys. Well, who said white guys are the only ones that can think? I mean, how stupid is that, right? And so what I do is I want them to spotlight a scientist, put a tab thing. This is the woman, Kizzy, who helped do the DNA, the COVID vaccine, and she's an African-American lady, and so that's a minority. So I have them go into Wikipedia, just copy-paste the first thing, change it a little. I don't want to spend too much time in having to do English stuff, and then post it in a discussion forum, and each other can learn from people that we think are great as a person, that the other, that are not normal people that can discover things. I do Hildegard von Bingen in Germany, which is fantastic lady. Or I do Einstein's ex-wife. And then I do Madame Curie, because Madame Curie got the Nobel Prize, Einstein's ex-wife, well, not. Guess what? And so, that kind of like talk a little bit about that, but that helps break down biases. I put that up on Commons as well, in case anybody wants to take it, use it or alter it or so. And then content meaning, E7. That's a big deal. how do we make a course relevant? We talked about that briefly. What does it mean these days? We got to include people. It's a different world. And by the way, I mean, you know, the good old I remember when I went to apprenticeship, you had to stuff envelopes for hours at a time. Nobody could ask, why are we going to do that? Is that meaningful? What is the thing with that? We just had to do it. And in Switzerland, most people that ever now stop apprenticeships, and they're talking about it. And one of the things they're talking about is that these days they just need to be more included in what we're doing. And we can say, well, we have to do it. But you guess what the outcome is? Look at the medical system. Did we do a good job? So we can't even say we know better than they do. So we got to be open to ideas and things. And by making a class, what does it mean to me? That involves them. They like doing that. They like these things. So I do. When we do chemistry, it's not real chemistry, it's biochemistry. You know, it's like for the body stuff. I do a food label analysis. When we do the skeletal, I do an ergonomic evaluation. I do a posture evaluation. I do an injury prevention thing when we do the muscles. And those are actually orthopedic tests. They're really useful. They actually help them not become weekend warriors who injure themselves as well. And then when you do the brain, I do a gratitude journal, for example. They also like that a lot, most of them. Of course, if something is triggering, like I do a food journaling when we talk digestion, I make sure I say, you know, if it's triggering to you, don't worry about it, give me a shout. We'll figure out something else. I don't want you to struggle and suffer, and get those things out of that way, and that usually works out fine. And then E8, the last one, is connection and belonging. Students need to feel connected to the instructor and to each other, and how do we foster that? Like I try sending group texts to my students about a week before, gradually informing them what we're doing. Every day or every other day, send them a text, and you know, they like it. They say, oh look, superb, thank you so much. Comes back like that. Or I have in the first 3 weeks, I had to do a health challenge. Took me a long time to think I can make students in anatomy meditate and not get kicked out of school. But nowadays it seems to be okay. And so I have to do things that some of these things we should be doing anyway. Drink some water, walk around a little bit, not just be sitting on our butts. But I have to do either one of these they have to choose for 3 weeks, because they address things that we can change. They address the physical we can change, the chemical we can change, like and the mental we can change. Genetics, we can't really do that much about. But if I want them to feel about their body, I want to give them tools to make them feel better. I'm not going to change mortality maybe, but I can change morbidity. How do I feel? And so what they do those things, and when they do it, they check in with the group. So I put them in group texts of like, I don't know, 6 to 8 students. They all do the same thing, and each day they get a text from each other, and they start talking to each other. Especially like meditations, like what am I supposed to do with this? You know, just sit still. We have to slowly talk about it. And so that kind of helps them feel connected. And over the years, I found that we, you know, especially in an online classroom where it is hard to connect, that sort of activity helps them connect. So that's kind of how I try to just give you some ideas to integrate some of those rubrics, give you a little quick overview, a little highlight. And I put some of these things up in Commons, like the syllabus, the diversity page, the profile thing. And then I start doing more plan your studies. First week, they have to give me a plan. Sunday through Saturday, where is my time? When do I get you give me my time? Because I need 8 hours from you for a 4-unit class. That means 12 hours a week on online. And then I have, you know, 16, 17-year-old students sometimes. They can post it on a wall so the parents know your professor is demanding you to study during that time. Because I don't want to because the problem with online I'm going to try to check in more the ones who don't pass and be more on their case. But I also want to early on make them understand it is a lot of work. It is not. Equity doesn't mean you ain't doing the work. That is not what that means. That's responsibility taking is part of equity. And teaching them how to take responsibility is part of that. And then I put, and this I adopted from Christine Biltz, also one of those equity from the last semester. She did an excellent job, so thank you. I don't want to just take things and not give credit to. I don't create all these things. And I also did one that, and I put it up too, learn through images. Because I created, when I figured I gotta teach with pictures, I created these text booklets. They're all picture booklets, and I have barcodes to videos in it. And I got all of that from Google. And so I figured I might as well teach them, because if they Google things and they get pictures, they can copy and paste and put it in a Word document, they can make their own book. And study that way if they want. So I make them have an activity so they learn a little bit about it. Good, so that's about what I have to say. How is that for you? Do you have any questions?
Can you turn back the last page?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, sir.
Can you share the slide?
Probably. Just tell me now.
I have a question for you.
Well, with any.
Yes.
So you're talking about texting the students as creating community. So I was thinking about, I know like some of my students use Discord.
They use what?
Discord.
Okay.
To like create their own community, and I've been invited to it before. But what if like, do you have any experience with like creating your own sort of Discord and inviting the students?
I do at Merritt we have Prompter.
Okay.
So we do Prompter with that. The reason why I would probably be somewhat hesitant at first is, at least for me, because I don't care if they text me, I'm fine with that. If they're in my face, they're not usually doing that, they're very respectful. It's just an extra step for the students. If I don't have a tech-savvy student, how am I going to get them online to do that? So that's sort of where I resorted so far, and I know it's going to have to change at some point, because I think texting is probably ultimately not the tool for that. It's probably something like Prompter or so. Prompter works really well. I should check into this course. I didn't know that.
I just, I guess the only thing I was worried about was like, what if there's somebody that's disrespectful and you don't know who it is? And do you shut it down? Like,
But I have their phone numbers.
yeah.
And they haven't been disrespectful so far. And I'm German, so guess what happens when they're disrespectful? That's usually, I know, I'm glad I haven't been in trouble here for that kind of stuff. But no, that's, I mean, I have, in the classroom, I have to call out people and put them in line sometimes, but online it's been not a problem so far. Any other questions? Yes?
So, if you have several groups, are you in all of the group chats?
Okay. Yeah, because also actually that happened not to me. What I do is I have to do a pathology presentation at the end, which is a group presentation. And they have to research online with the group and then make videos and post them online. And ideally it's like you do like a Zoom and then you create the video. So if we're working with how to do all of that. In the classroom, we just had to come up to the class. And so they text with each other. And I'm in all their texts. And last semester, one of the ladies was nasty. And so I couldn't read it, like, you can't do that. You've got to be nice to each other. We also have an etiquette rules. I didn't talk about that. I think it's very important. I'm happy to share that too, but the one I have is sort of, was shared to me. I think we have that on comments probably already. That they know how to talk to each other. And I haven't made contracts. One of the activities that gave some point is an etiquette contract. And then the next week, I think I did that. I haven't done it last semester. I put it up on a Padlet. I use Padlet a lot. Like at end of the week, they have a Padlet where they ask questions, things that they take away, things that they questions about. So I can go in and I actually do those a lot. Well, even more than the discussions, because that's where they sort of talk about what's going on in the course. Yes?
Do you have an easy way for captioning of the video that already has been done?
For captioning, I have a website that was shared with me that I can share with you guys.
Okay.
No problem. That I get the YouTube link, I put it in, and it gives you a caption. And then in Studio, you can attach the caption, and then it's captioned.
Okay.
So that's not a problem. Just reach out to me.
Okay.
I should give you mine. Yeah, the easiest way to get in touch with me is text. Don't try email. Email is hard. I got too many of them. So my number is 510-387, oh great, 2946. And that's text. So that's good. And yeah. Yeah, that's good. So yeah, if you text, that would be great, and I can probably figure out how to get the slides to the people who want. Just text me if you want the slides, and shoot me an email on it, and I'll do that. Because it's great. The equity rubric is fantastic. I mean, I went through it real fast. And there's all these like, you know, you're aligned, you're not aligned, you're superb aligned or something. But I didn't want to get into all those details because the language sometimes is a little difficult to get for me at least. Any other questions? Well, look at that. We have enough time to walk over to the next talk. And that's it. I really appreciate your interest. Thank you so much.